Right. Let's see. Plug to charge. If that's going okay. Right. So, step back. See if you guys can hear me okay. Right. Assalamu alaikum. Right, Aman, Asma Ravat. If any of you could just give me a shout out whether you can hear me. And right, shukran. Nothing quite like chai. So let's see, people. Aina wasalna. Where have we got to? Right, you can hear. Can you hear me fine? Yes. I have to apologize for I'm going to Abu Zahra, ahlan wa sahlan wa salamu alaikum. Clearly hear you. Okay, shukran. Okay, I got that from Adam Al-Wahshi. Shukran. I have to first of all, let's begin. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah wa salatu salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa وعلى عبادي الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله عليكم أهلا وسهلا وشكرا. Look at that love right back at you, people. Right back at you. Right. Look at this. This t-shirt isn't actually from the Boxing Day sales or anything like that. I actually bought this a little while back, just never wore it, and thought today, being the devilish time, I might as well wear the skull. I don't know why I'm drawn to these kind of things, by the way. So, right now, I want to first of all explain that the reason why I'm more often than not usually always late is one, because it's just in my DNA, obviously, being Pakistani, so I'm not going to apologize for that. The other thing is I'm actually, in the evening, I actually take live cases, and I'm dealing with live cases and issues and things like that, and a lot of it is usually over the phone and stuff like this, and it goes on for hours. A lot of them revolve around relationship matters and other things too, but so that's what usually gets me late at this kind of time, because it's difficult cutting people off. You can't just when they're in the middle of a meltdown, you can't just tell them, alright, I gotta shoot now. So anyway, let's get back to more important things. I am going to be having the questions forwarded to me, provided my my Mufti helpers are on point and they're ready to forward to me the question. Right, okay. Right, I'm just double checking that. So cool. Let's get the ball rolling. Where does right, I don't want to open with that question. Qasim, behave. Open with a question on misyar, but I'll come back to it. Right. Why are people so obsessed about your clothes, your hair? No idea why people are obsessed. I have to say, I think people, you know what as well, sometimes some people have asked me about they've asked me about my hair and so, you know, my hair is actually is spiky the way it is. When I say spiky, as in right now I've got no products on it, and it kind of stands like that. Obviously, if I have longer hair, which I did many years ago, when I used to have, like, I could tie it back in a ponytail almost. I mean, I could tie it back, but I never used to. I used to have really long hair. Then it will drop, but otherwise it will just spike. So just in case, you know, a few people think, why the spikes? Having said that, I do like spikes anyway. But let's get back to some questions, people, some questions. Right. Is Sunnah for leading prayer? Hamza Ahmed. Right. Nope. It is not. We do not, in the school of Medina, does not believe the covering of the head to be a sunnah. Okay. And Imam Shatibi answers that well when he says in his book, the Muafaqaat, which is on the Maqasid of the Sharia, and he answers that where he covers custom and convention, al-urf wal-ada, and he says that in the West, and the West then was northwestern Africa and Western Europe, so Spain, Portugal, parts of Sicily, whatever in between, wherever there were Muslims. He says we, the Muslims of the West, do not conventionally cover our heads, the men. And he says, whereas in the East they have this convention of covering their heads. So if you were in the East and you didn't cover your head, they would look down on you and see that as a problem. But here in the West, it does not impact us. So that's an interesting discussion Imam Shatibi presents. Let's also, before getting into, I'm having the questions sent to me, by the way. So shukran. All right, look at that. Look at that. All those love hearts coming right at me. Shukran, right back at you people. Right back at you. So the thing is, I want to discuss, before getting into this, that I don't know if you've noticed, but what's very recent is on the news, and I feel it does have a connection with the UK, but in Pakistan, those of you who are aware of Imran Khan, I'm sure all of you are aware of the Imran Khan, who was the cricket legend. I'm not personally into cricket, but I mean, he was the cricket legend, and he runs a political party known as PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the Movement for Justice. Now, he's a bit of a social person, somebody who's all about it's like a socialist, it is a socialist party. So it's one of I think it's perhaps the only socialist party in Pakistan currently. But anyway, he recently has been accused by a Mufti, what's his name? Mufti's, I've forgotten but Mufti Qadri, his surname is Qadri, and he's been accused by this Mufti of blasphemy, and therefore has a fatwa against him of Kuffar. And this Mufti has said that should he not publicly retract his statement and do tawbah, then we will declare him to be wajibul qatl. Okay, we will declare him to be mandated to be executed. And this execution, although he says initially will fall upon the state to execute him, but should they fail to do so, then should any member of the public, then they will not be blameworthy from an Islamic perspective. Right, now, I'm just gonna close it. Just realize that the sound was kind of semi-on. Right, so now this thing that what they're basing this on is, and he says this about two people, this Mufti does, one about Imran Khan and one the son of Salman Taseer, who was executed by his statutory guard, whose name was Mumtaz Qadri, and who said he executed him for the love of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, the thing is, so that Salman Taseer who's been executed, his son, Shan Taseer, he also, the same Mufti, has this fatwa against him as well, that he too is mandated to be executed. Right, so now with these things in mind, what they're saying this, before I come back to speaking about this, I want to give a background. Imran Khan, what he had said was, during a speech, speaking about the turmoil that they're going through in Pakistan and their movement, he said that sometimes I find doubt and I find these things, and he said I go through times of darkness, and what I find as a solace is the verse of the Quran, and he's speaking about Surah Al-Duha, and he says, I find these verses an absolute solace and comfort for me, that when the Prophet ﷺ had initially, he says this as well, he says when the Prophet had initially received revelation, then there was a cut-off for several, I mean, whether it was for 6 months or whatever, the people disagree, but there was a cut-off. And during this time, the Prophet ﷺ became extremely anxious and very turbulent, like he didn't understand what was going on, and he because he saw revelation and then he heard nothing. So it was a time when, according to the ahadith, the Prophet ﷺ questioned himself, and that what is happening to me? Like, did I imagine that? Was it an imaginary? Was it a hallucination? And this is, as some of the riwayat explain, am I going insane? And so this is what Imran Khan says, and then he says, and then Allah revealed some of the greatest verses to say, look, that not only has Allah not forgotten you, but if you're going through this time of darkness, then look back at your life, at the orphan who was feeding him, at the one who had no guidance, who was guiding him. That it was Allah. So if Allah could take care of you in those times, then why can He not take care of you in this time? And Imran Khan is mentioning this as a source of comfort to say, look, if we are facing tough times, look at our past, that Allah has been there for us. Now, this person says, oh my God, how can you refer to the Prophet ﷺ and the word insanity? So he says, therefore you have blasphemed, you have left Islam, you are now a kafir, you must... And Yusuf, alaykum assalam, I just want to say that this cancer, this is actually a cancer that has plagued seriously huge proportions of this ummah. This is extremism. This is Kharijism. This obsession to control and excommunicate and chuck people out of the fold of Islam, right? This, wallahi, is one of the greatest, I don't know if we can say diseases or calamities that has befell this ummah. And I just pray that none of this really, or if it has crept into the western part of this world, that may, you know, Allah guide these people. May these people open their eyes from this kind of pathetic rhetoric. This kind of... I love the way Maulana Tariq Jamil said in response to these kind of issues when he was asked about them. And he said about people doing takfir, calling people kafir, trying to chuck them out of the fold of Islam. He says, Yar, he addresses these people. He says, kafir kya kam pad gaye hain kya? Like, you know, like, he says, like, I don't understand. Are the kuffar, like, do we feel that the kuffar have become so few in number? You know, वो कम पड़ गए कि जिसको देखो कि इसको भी काफिर बनाओ, उसको भी काफिर बनाओ, like make him a kafir, make him a kafir. कि यार काफिरों में कमी पड़ गई है. कि we're so, you know, we haven't got enough kuffar in the world, so we need to declare Muslims kuffar. Like, ya salam, I am utter, I abhor and am disgusted to my core at this kind of Islamic, you know, because it takes the shade of Islam. That's the problem. This kind of attitude, and I needed to highlight it just in case you people weren't aware of this, and this is going on. And we really, this behavior has no place in Islam, and it definitely has no place in the modern world. And, you know, this kind of like, oh, him a kafir, we've become a laughing stock. Seriously. And it's no surprise that people want to abandon Islam, because it's just full of this kind of nonsense. It isn't inherently, but people are full of this kind of nonsense, and they keep giving it the veneer of Islam. Anyway, so that seems to be going on. So if you do see that, that's the background to it. I want you to know that these things are not blasphemy. Okay, Imran Khan and people, what they're doing, they are not. You know, for the love of God, blasphemy is somebody intending to insult, hating God and His Messenger and wanting to insult them. Not somebody saying something which you are just sitting there trying to find faults with. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to highlight that. Right, let's take some... Junaid saying, I've sent you a friend request. Alright, I'll look into that, inshallah. Let's take a look at some of these questions, people. Right. Is Nation of Islam part of traditional Islam? Faiz Ilyas has asked that. Now, reversed camera. Have to remind people that. Nation of Islam, in its the way I understand it, that Farid Muhammad was God, was Allah. He took the form of this person. He was incarnated, reincarnated, or whatever as this Farid, whatever, and then he chose Elijah Muhammad to be his kind of epistle, his messenger, and the final messenger, and so on and so forth. This understanding is not from the Islamic paradigm. Okay, so they are not part of to be understood as part of Islam or the Islamic community, although they do have huge overlaps which they borrow from Islam. They do borrow from other religions too. Is that a picture of the devil on your t-shirt? Well, I don't think the devil has a human skeleton, does he? Right, have you ever been to the States? Umar Khan, I have been to the States on 2 occasions. Generally to Missouri or Missouri, St. Louis, right? So I've been there. Sabhi Zahruni, which books would you recommend for learning Shuruh al-Hadith, which is not so Hadithi type, like something Sufi philosophy, like which has depth in it? No idea, Sahbi. The books, there's great books of commentaries on Hadith. There's so many, I don't know what to really begin with. If you're talking about Bukhari, Fathul Bari, there's so many commentaries on Bukhari that are out. Recently, Zarhuni's, Al-Shabih Zarhuni's Al-Fajr Al-Sati' is an awesome commentary. And if you're talking about Tirmidhi, Ibn Arabi's, if you're talking about the Muwatta, there's so many. Al-Baji's Muntaqa, Ibn Abdul Bar, his Istithkar, the Masalik of Ibn Arabi. There's just so many. If you're talking about Sahih Muslim, Qadi Iyad, which is a commentary upon Al-Mazari, or you could look at Imam Nawawi's commentary. If you're looking at Abu Dawood, Awn al-Ma'bud is an excellent commentary. It also carries in its footnotes the Ibn al-Qayyim's commentary. If you're talking, I'm just trying to think there's so many. I hope that's given some kind of insight. With Bukhari, there were so many more that have been brought into print now as well. Qastalani's, there's Aini's, Umdat al-Qari, there's just so many that have been brought into print now. Right, let's see. Sajida Madni would love to know whether gelatin is really haram. Many people believe the product has changed. Right, now, I have done a reasonable explanation on gelatin, which is available on YouTube as an audio file. So you can listen to that there. I think it's about 15-20 minutes long. I do go through the entire diversity, the school of law, the people on either side, Ibn Abdul Hakam and other people, and all these rulings, and Abu Yusuf, and I mention in great detail. In summary, what I do say is that I do believe istihala, which is the chemical property change or transformation, has occurred to a sufficient quantity, if you like. What I say is, if you had something which was gelatin free and gelatin, and both were easily accessible, then it's better, in my understanding, to take the gelatin free, just to stay in line with everybody, and you've got no problems there. If, however, there isn't a gelatin free option, it's just gelatin, and you want the thing and you need it, I do personally believe it is permissible. So that's my understanding, although I do recognize that ulama have disagreed with that. Okay, so I hope that shed some light. Okay, does having images or photos of people displayed in the house stop angels entering the house? Now, I have answered this with with considerable detail previously, but just to shed some light, I do not believe that photographs would stop angels from entering the house. That's actually quite silly when we think about it. First of all, there were no photographs in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Secondly, there were pictures, and pictures did exist in the time, as in drawn out, very basic kind of like artistry was there even in the Prophet's house of certain animals and things like this, and the famous incident about the Prophet saying, remove the curtain from there because it distracted me from my Salah. The Prophet didn't say, oh my God, there's a picture, how can angels come in? He said, remove it, it's distracted me, because according to the school of Medina, you look ahead when you pray. Although you can also look at the place of sujood. So this was, so this is as far as pictures are concerned, and I did highlight, and you can check my previous, I went into considerable detail about statues. This was really, this ruling was because people were new to Islam. That's what it was. It's not really something that would apply, and it's silly saying, oh, angels can't come in like this. Oh, I mean, can the angel of death still come in? Or does the angel of death not come in either? So I think that's it's not, you know, the answer is of course they can come in, and photos are permissible. Jamila Hekman has said, if a human has free will and Allah, but everything is weighed Allah, and he knows everything that will happen, then it is someone's fault if they don't accept Islam, or is it just his plan? See, this is really part of the paradox that we have within faith, and there are some very problematic questions which we don't and will never truly understand. In my understanding, I believe humans have free will. Okay, I believe that is how the Quran addresses us, and that is the understanding I take from the Quran and the school of Medina, that humans have free will. Okay, we are not doomed. I don't believe we are doomed from birth. Okay, I believe we have been given free will. If you're going to say doomed from the angle that Allah knows eventually what you will do, then that is true. Allah does know, but He is not making you do that. He has, within this system, He has created a kind of dynamism within this narrative of ours where we have choice, and He's allowed us to exercise it. It's like you playing a video game. Now, sure, somebody has designed that game, and somebody has designed it that it can fail at every stage. And the designer has also allowed for it to reach the end. Now, where you will achieve, what you will achieve in that game and where you will get to is based on your ability. That's what this is like. Okay. The only difference is that Allah has encompassing knowledge, and so and time doesn't, Allah is not bound by time, so He knows the eventual outcome, but the playing and the potential, the actualization and the potential within the game is is up to the player. Okay, so that's my understanding. I know people historically say things like, no, we're compelled, and all this kind of things which are really just self-contradictory, right? So what is the purpose? Why would Allah create people just to punish them? It does not make any sense to me. It does not make any sense in my understanding, and it is not the paradigm by which the Quran addresses us. So if you read the Quran is addressing us all about choice, all about reflection, all about it's you. And that's the understanding that I go by. Okay? Does the Quran contain synonyms, or does every word have its own specified meaning? Khabith versus rich, thiyab versus libas. Okay, Muhammad Khalid, good question. The Arab ulama generally say, and by that I mean the ulama of the Arabic language, they generally say that la taradufa bil Arabiya, that there is no synonyms. There are no synonyms in Arabic, that all words have a kind of key defining point to them, although there's a huge overlap. To be fair, I've even heard by English linguists the same thing being said. Okay, that in English there are no absolute synonyms. I've heard that from on certain courses and lectures by expert linguists. Once again, Allahu A'lam. So that's what I believe. Although to us some things may seem similar, they may seem identical, yet there may be a very a delicate nuance of a difference. So the not understanding it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. لَيْسَ عَدْمُ الْعِلْمِ عِلْمًا بِالْعَدْمِ. The absence of knowledge is not the knowledge of its absence. Okay, let's take the next question, people. Right, Afzal Qadri, Shukran Abu Hussein Al-Haydari, who highlighted that the Mufti I was speaking about earlier on, the crackpot, who seems, you know what they ought to have. Pakistan, as part of its legislative order, has something known as a National Action Plan, part of which religious incitement to hatred is actually illegal, believe it or not. Issuing death warrants is illegal. But yet, for some reason, Pakistan doesn't seem to chase these people up, but they ought to. Saw a hadith earlier that said it's acceptable for women not to wear hijab in the West now because it may harm their safety due to Islamophobic attack. What's your thought? Well, Jamila Hekmun, the thing is that naturally safety is paramount. Okay, if somebody feels that their safety may be compromised, that is their personal call. Nobody can dictate to them what their threshold of insecurity ought to be. So if some woman is feeling intimidated because of her hijab, I do believe she does not have to wear hijab based on that situation. I don't believe it has to be a life-death situation. It's enough for her to be intimidated and frightened that she can do that. That's my understanding, and ulama may disagree with that. And once again, the key purpose of hijab was modesty. Okay, the purpose of hijab, today we call hijab this thing around the head. That is not traditionally or in the Sharia called the hijab. The hijab in the Sharia is actually a modest covering. So it's not specified with the head or the body, it's just a covering, which is modest. So modesty is what is paramount. And women can, and there's many non-Muslim women who are very modest in their attire, and there's non-Muslim women who may not be so as modest in their attire, and there's Muslims who are modest and not as modest, and that's what this whole thing is about. So if somebody's feeling threatened because of something around the head, then look, what I'm trying to say is there's no point. I mean, it's up to them. If they want to pull that risk, it's their call. If they don't want to, it's their call. This isn't the end of the world. Imam Malik, in some of his fatwa regarding the hair, was more lenient than he was with other things. He says that a woman, generally, according to most of the fuqaha, around slave men that she owned, and she was not a mahram to these men, and she was not entitled to be sexual. There wasn't any kind of sexual relationship going on between them. Yet she, according to Imam Malik, didn't have to cover her hair in front of them. Okay, so that's Imam Malik's fatwa in the Mudawwana. And you also see Ibn Ashur does say that some people felt that the hair, although he doesn't go into who he's talking about, but he says in his tafsir, وَقِيلَ الرَّأْسِ, and he says, and it's said that even the head doesn't have to be covered. But the point is, the majority position is that yes, the hair and the head is covered, but in these circumstances, if somebody's feeling threatened or intimidated, it's their call, and nobody can judge them over that. Right. بهجة نفوس تلخيص البخاري العارف ابن أبي جمرة. Yes, of course, Muhammad Talaha, shukran for sharing that. That was to the question earlier about the commentaries on Hadith. Ibn Abi Jamra, in his Bahjatun Nufus, does have a very Sufic kind of angle. As you've probably gathered, I'm not really the best person to ask about these kind of very spiritual, Sufic matters, really. And more, to me, I believe, and I believe this is what the deen is built upon, it's built upon reason. This is what distinguishes humans from other creatures, reason. Right? Our ability, our faculty to reason. That's what I'm obsessed about. That's what I believe this deen was all about, beginning with the term iqra, read. Why? Because you can do. You have reason. Okay? This whole message that, hey, just think about this. This was all about reason. So that's the kind of things I'm into. Obviously, I'm into fiqh and all these other awesome sciences too. But really, Sufic kind of texts and stuff like that. I mean, I may know certain things, obviously, being in the field of the Islamic sciences. But I'm not an expert on which are the best mystic texts and stuff like that. Right, is there an English version of Al-Muafaqaat? I've no idea. I know a lot of work has been done on Imam Shatibi. God willing, should Allah give me tawfiq, I would want within this year to do a course, an elaborate course. When I say elaborate, meaning at least several lectures, whether that's, I don't know, 6 to 10, whatever it is, something between that number, on the Muafaqat and on the Maqasid of Sharia, because I feel Imam Shatibi hasn't been truly understood by many people, and people may say the same about me, that I haven't understood him. But I feel that many people, especially from a Salafi background and things like that, that believe in Hadith absolutism over Hadith relativism, and people that don't make a distinction between Hadith and Sunnah, and people who don't really believe in applied maqasid today. They believe in theory in maqasid, but not in maqasid applied. They seem to have lectured on topics like maqasid and Imam Shatibi, and they seem to just paint such a distorted picture. Oh yes, of course we love maqasid, of course we too, Imam Shatibi, people have, and this is them saying people have misunderstood him. Of course he didn't mean use this, he just meant that the Sharia has maqasid, which is duh, right? Everybody knows the Sharia had maqasid. What was the purpose of writing this book, and why did it revolutionize everything? Right, so I would like to, inshallah, God willing, do that within this year at some point. May Allah give me tawfiq. Right, Ameen. Right, so how can we get peace in our homes? Real peace, Ahmed Khan. What a question. How can we get peace? That is the truth. Do you not feel in some ways this is the human search? What is this journey throughout life? Is it not just to gain a level of contentment? Is it not to, this unsettled kind of turbulence? Do we not all carry that in our hearts? I mean, I feel we do. I feel that is part of this iman. But it depends what you mean by peace. That's if you mean by it this quest, this unquenched thirst, this kind of question mark that is still there, then I think that is part of this message. That will always be, okay, that as long as there is man, there will be this kind of, this question, this search, this quest. But if you mean by that everyday survival, like everyday matters like arguing, bickering, if that's what you mean, then of course there can be peace from these things. And life should not be like that. Okay? God forbid life be like every day full of, or mostly full of bickering and arguments. And if somebody's life is like that, then they need to stop and seriously evaluate what's going on. If you are arguing with, let's say, your wife or husband almost on a daily, but even if you're arguing once a week, like arguing, then I think that's a problem, a huge problem. And I don't mean by that just a little, come on, what the hell. I don't mean like that, but an argument. Then I think you need to actually sit down, And you need to first of all think what is going on, and you need to have a dialogue, okay, that this is unacceptable. I mean, the quality of life will be seriously impacted by just having one argument a week. I mean, if you're living with somebody, can you imagine that shared space, negativity, tension? God damn. I could not live like that as a person. I'm just saying. So I think you have to discuss, realize, find out what it is, try to resolve, and inshallah, hopefully you can find some resolution. Naturally, look, with relationships, things like this, there will always be compromises. Okay, and it's true, one person will compromise more than the other, right? So, but that's where the kind of mutual elasticity takes place in life, isn't it? And I think that's you have to have an understanding. And there are some relationships, and there's unfortunately there's many relationships as well that, to be honest with you, they've actually just passed their sell-by date, their expiry date. They are simply on a life support machine. They are dead weight, and they are not in any way warm, helpful, positive. They are only negative. They are only wearing people down. Those relationships, if they are like that, where you can't stand each other, where you resent each other, then as Allah says in the Quran, imsakum bima'ruf, you either stay together, you hold on to the relationship with kindness, or tasrihum bi ihsan, you part ways gracefully. If you're not getting on with somebody, it's not till death do us part. Right? Okay, if somebody resents you, they can't stand you. I mean, why do you want to be with somebody who can't stand you anyway? So I think then you should just part ways gracefully. So if that's what the question was about, then I hope that's answered it. Okay. Is the incident of the Prophet ﷺ splitting the moon literal? I read that it's talking about it as a future reference on the Day of Judgment. Okay, Waqar, good question. What I would like to say is that the miracles which are attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, the true miracle that is attributed to the Prophet ﷺ is the Quran. And this message is the Prophet's miracle. Other secondary or tertiary miracles that are attributed to the Prophet ﷺ are attributed as events which have, apart from a belief factor associated to them for people who will come after, they have no bearing on your or my daily Islam. Okay, so, and that in itself is a miracle almost, in metaphorical terms, of how Allah has constructed Islam, this deen. He has not wanted us, He has not based such a huge thing on certain factors that some people may not believe in, that some people may struggle with. So should they struggle with this, the whole thing may collapse. Allah has not based this on weak foundations. So the deen is not at all based on miracles. Okay, miracles are events. So let's say the splitting of the moon, or people say water flowing and things like this. These miracles are simply transmitted to us as events that occurred, and they are akhbar. In the Sharia we call them akhbar, that's all. They are just khabar. It's something which may it's a qualitative input, not a quantitative input. Okay, so it does not impact your iman in any way. If anything, it qualitatively may increase your wow for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was already there, but it just adds to it. If you struggle with certain aspects of certain miracles, then no part of the deen hinges on that. No faith hinges on that. So meaning, yes, I know part of the deen, meaning the anecdotal part of the deen, but not the deen as a faith does not hinge upon whether you accept miracles or not. So that is from the beauty, and that is a miraculous beauty of Islam. Okay, so I hope that sheds some light. And people shouldn't, by the way, people shouldn't kind of intimidate and blackmail and try to guilt trip them into saying, well, if you don't believe this, you're no longer a Muslim, and if you shouldn't do this. Look, let people be comfortable with their faith. Iman was something that should complement our daily lives. Wallahi, the deen, if anything, should be complementary and never be an impediment. And if somebody is struggling with something, assist them. Don't trip them over. Don't try to guilt trip them. Don't try to emotionally blackmail them. Don't theologically blackmail them. Don't try to pretend that you're in control of the gates of hell and saying, well, you know, if you, I'm gonna open the gates here. In you go. You know, you are not in charge of the gates of hell, neither of the gates of heaven. So have compassion for people and their struggle. Okay. Right. Next question. Robin asking Ramirez. Right. Asking, are all non-Muslims kuffar? I know the answer. I just want to. Right. Okay. You see, there's a difference. Allah speaks in the Quran about this deen reaching people hatta ta'tiyahumul bayyina. Okay, until the hujjah reaches people, the bayyina, the absolute undisputed clear evidence, the burhan reaches people. These evidences, clear cut, undisputed, categorical, reaches people. Rusulam min Allahi tatlu suhufan mutahhara. That messengers reciting these pure scripture to the people, the messengers doing it. Allah could have said you doing it as well. The messengers. So when the Prophet, and Allah, what does he say about the Prophet? إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Indeed, you are upon a great characteristic, a quality. You are impeccable in your characteristics, in your character. You will not misrepresent this message. Will people misrepresent it? Most definitely many will. Will people undersell it? Many definitely will. Will people misinterpret it? Yes, many will. So the thing is that when people spread Islam, I don't believe that the bayyinah has been established. Okay. I believe that, yes, an attempt of da'wah has taken place. That's all I'm calling it. An attempt of da'wah. Most likely, in our day and age, definitely a distorted version in most cases. In some cases, maybe not. Okay, so, yes. Now, what does this mean? Well, from the dunyawi sense, from the worldly perspective, Islam lays out for us several rules. Okay, rules like, okay, do you pay zakat? Who do you give zakat to? Do you go on hajj? Who goes on hajj? When certain things, in which it groups. So for example, this is a masjid. Masjid has certain rules. This is so on. And Muslims have certain things that so a Muslim must pay zakat. A non-Muslim doesn't need to pay zakat. So it groups people into this category of a Muslim and a kafir. This is from a perceptible angle, that's all. Not from a objective, truly objective. I mean, from our perspective, yes, it seems objective, but not from God's perspective, necessarily. So we're not talking about the quality, a qualitative approach in terms of Iman and Kuffar. This is simply a legalistic approach. It's a perceptionalist approach. That's all it is. So we in the dunya will call many people kafir. We will call them kuffar in terms of our rulings to understand. Does this mean they are the kuffar of the akhirah? In the afterlife, are they the kuffar there? I believe most people in our day and age are not over there. Because the most people today, come on, let's face it, the message reaching them is so distorted. It's almost impossible. I'm actually shocked people embrace Islam. I think I would like you all to take a moment and reflect that if you were non-Muslim, would you embrace Islam today? I know what my answer would be. Most likely, Allahu A'lam. And, you know, I would like you to reflect on that. So I hope that's of some help. I still don't get Jambaz is saying your affinity to dog tags. Look, it's each to their own. As the poet says in Arabic, وَلِلنَّاسِ فِي مَا يَعْشَقُونَ مَذَاهِبُ. And people, each to their own, in what they love, in what they like. Okay, so everybody has a taste, everybody has a style, so you wouldn't want me to dress exactly like you, to be exactly like you. I wouldn't want you to be exactly like me. I mean, we would want our idiosyncrasies, our individualities, okay? And that's the way that, and this deen, it loves that about people. Allah says, you know, وَفِي اخْتِلَافِ أَلْوَانِكُمْ وَأَلْسِنَتِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ. Look how different you are, your colors, your tongues. Look how different your languages are. Allah says in that is Allah's sign. A sign that truly, wow. So our individuality I think there's no harm in encouraging individuality. So it's all good. You know, there's a hadith that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ sat down, and I believe it was Khalid ibn Walid who was eating a dab, and a dab is it's like it's the Arabian kind of lizard. It's not these geckos, not these small little lizards, huge kind of lizards. And he was eating that, and he presented the Messenger of Allah, and the Messenger of Allah says, and he asks, haramun huwa, is it haram? And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ says, no. He says, lam ajidhu fi ardi qawmi fa ajiduni a'afuhu. He says, my people, they never used to eat this. Like my people, where I'm from, the Prophet said, Quraysh, they never used to eat this. So I find myself disgusted by it. I find it nauseating. But it's not haram. You by all means eat it. Okay, so go for it. So this is how Islam, and there's nothing wrong with, these things are not haram, right? These things are jewelry. We have to get something we have to understand something, okay? By default, all rulings are permissible. All things are permissible, okay? All rulings, all things are permitted by default, unless proven otherwise. Now, once you have that basis, prove otherwise. Don't expect me to prove its legitimacy. Okay, Allah says, وَالَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. He created everything in the earth for you. That's my dalil that everything is permissible. Okay. Now you show me where this is haram. But you have to show me with conclusivity. Don't just say, مَنْ تَشَبَّهَ بِقَوْمٍ. Because that is one of the most misquoted hadith that we have in this century and the last century. This, or whoever imitates a people because women wear this. I mean, what women do you know that hang razor blades around their necks? Apart from the Vikings, hell yeah. Apart from Lagatha. Anyway, so the thing is, now let's move on to the next question. What do you think about reforming of Islam as Maajid Nawaz preaches? Hina Ahmed has asked. See, the thing is, I disagree with Maajid Nawaz's approach. I don't, look, people, every person can have a valid perspective. The thing about Maajid Nawaz is, I believe, is that he began in a way that just kind of targeted the Muslim community, or it appeared to target. Now, I also critique many things, but I do strongly believe in positive networking. I believe in this tradition of ours, this ilm, in the classical tradition. I believe in this strongly. I have dedicated years of my life to it. I believe in ulama, and I disagree with many of them strongly, but I love and respect as well the tradition. I will meet people, I will go out of my way to host them personally, to accommodate for them, to provide, if they're coming to my city, Birmingham, we always try to reach out to people to we provide them accommodation. If they're staying here, I will drive them personally, or have somebody drive them around. I will serve them if I can. I will try to speak to them, voice my concerns. I will try to show, look, we've got a problem here. Like, well, what do you think? And I'm doing this, and I am trying to do this. But I don't believe, like, if I get onto, let's say, the Daily Mail, or I don't know, the Telegraph or something, and I just bash Muslims non-stop, then naturally Muslims are going to hate me. This is the fundamental difference. It's not about what is being said, it's sometimes how it's being said. And don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of this too. I do sometimes, because I get upset with what Muslims are sometimes doing. Like this, issuing death warrants. Issuing, like when we hear oppression, they're oppressing women, saying, and I had a rant last year, and I stand by my rant of this imposing, where they impose this 48-mile rule on women, they can't travel without. I do still call that, for our context, absurd. And I do stand by that, and I know that upset a lot of people. So I do this myself sometimes, but generally, I'm not about that. Okay, and I don't believe people should be about that, about just Muslims, just ranting, share ilm, share knowledgeable points, and stand by them. That's what I'm saying. So I do disagree with Maajid Nawaz on these things, and also the fact that so I hope that answers the question. Okay. Right, so where have we got to? God. Right. What's your opinion on vaping? I don't believe personally cigarettes to be haram. Okay, so I believe cigarettes to be makruh, discouraged, disliked. I would personally advise all people who smoke to quit smoking. I do not smoke. I do believe that health is the greatest blessing that we have. One of the greatest blessings we have. Preserve it. I do believe it's a multi-billion pound industry which is just really just leeching onto your dependency, and they're just extorting money from you. That money is better spent on you, on your children. Buy them gifts, buy them something every day instead of buying cigarettes if you can. But having said that, I don't believe it's haram. I'm not going to lie. Some people say you should just say it's haram, but I don't believe I have that authority to lie on behalf of Allah, because I don't believe that Allah would punish somebody for doing this. I believe it's something that is just discouraged and disliked based on health reasons. So vaping is in my understanding, less so, because once again, I'm not an expert, but I feel that it's like somebody here is quoting a statistic, Omar Al-Hallak, quoting that it's 95% more healthy than cigarettes. So great, that's awesome. Okay, how would you answer that the Quran only movement, especially as they base most of their rejection of Hadith based on logic? Yasin, that is an excellent question. I've answered this before in one of the previous sessions, and I say this again. I believe that Imam Malik, his methodology is a godsend for our age and our context. Imam Malik was the don of Hadith and Sunnah. He was the master, the legend, Amirul Mu'mineen in Hadith. He taught us in his Muwatta that there are several Hadith that will be Sahih and we will not accept them because they clash. They do not make sense to us. They clash with the overall message of Islam. They clash, and Islam and faith is built upon reason, that it should not clash with reason. He taught us that. Now we practice that. At the same time, he said that what is Sunnah will not clash. And he made this distinction between hadith and sunnah. And a huge part of this deen is embodied within the sunnah. So by this we fall on neither extremes. We don't fall on this, let's reject a huge portion of the deen, because we're going to reject all sunnah. And Allah says, وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوا وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. What the messenger of Allah gave you, take it. Allah is telling you. And in the messenger of Allah do you have a perfect example. Right, so the thing is, but in the messenger, meaning his sunnah, when Imam Malik was asked about certain hadith, he said, when asked about certain practices, he said, Amma, even the adhan, he said, Amma adhanu yawmin wa layla. He said the adhan of a day and a night that the messenger may have condoned and conducted. He says, I'm not denying that may have happened. This may be like that. Is it a hadith? I'm not denying it, Imam Malik saying. But he says this was the practice. The children en masse, like in huge quantities, inherited from their fathers, who inherited from the companions, who inherited directly from the messenger. He says you have here lived in Medina, a living practice. So this is how I would answer that question. And likewise, you don't fall on the other extreme of whereby you declare every hadith a sunnah, and then you are trapped in certain things which I believe are clear mistakes or fabrications. Things like saying to kill the lizard, kill the gecko is if you strike him. This is a hadith it's in Sahih Muslim, and I believe it's in Bukhari as well, that if you strike him, the gecko, the lizard, with the first strike, you will get 100 rewards. And if you kill the gecko with 2 strikes, you get 50 rewards. And then if you kill him with the third, then there's a certain amount of reward. This is nonsensical. There's no way that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ would have said that. And why? Because, it mentions, because the gecko was blowing into the fire of Ibrahim ﷺ to make the fire greater. I mean, come on. Geckos do not reason. Okay, they're just creatures. They're not like, and the Prophet said in a hadith that in every creature, in every living creature, there will be judgment in how you treated it. That is a hadith. And there will be a reward in you taking care of it. In every creature. And that is a sahih hadith. So why this clashes with the overall message of Islam? So you fall on this extreme where you attribute everything to the Prophet and inadvertently drive certain people away from Islam. This is why I do feel that that Imam Malik, who the Messenger of Allah, I believe, said about that when a time will come when people will seek knowledge and they will not find anybody more knowledgeable min alim al-Madina than the scholar of Medina, who I believe was Imam Malik. Okay guys, I'm going to try to do some rapid responses now, just to get in some of these questions. Salam Muhammad Alam saying, where can I find Ibn Kathir's book about the permissibility of Mawlid? Allahu A'lam, try Google. I didn't realize, to be honest with you, that he had a book on the permissibility, but okay. Farhan, is it possible to develop a new school of modern fiqh on par with the 4 we already have? Farhan, I believe that would be to reinvent the wheel is nonsensical, in my understanding. But what I do believe is that that fiqh needs to be updated. We need a huge update. One of those that you have to leave the Wi-Fi on and you got to have a strong connection. It's got to be broadband and it's going to take all night to update. Right? So it's a few gigabytes of an update. Because our huge volumes of our fiqh is out of sync. Massively out of sync. I could take you, and I do hope to do this one day, take you quickly through chapters of our fiqh law to show you how it's so out of sync. right? Because it seriously does not, it needs a massive update. And I agree that it needs a massive update, but I don't think you need to invent a fifth madhab. You can just do that with the madhahib we already have and the usul we already have. How authentic are your biceps? Right. God, look at that, people. Look at that. Right. Well, hopefully they're authentic enough. What is your Ayub al-Maliki? What is your opinion on perennialism? Right, that's a very lengthy question. We're going to have to leave that one till inshallah next time. What is the purpose of the dog tags? I've answered that already. Evil smile, Shamas Khan saying, smile, ya sheikh. That one's going out for you, Shamas. Right, so Labib saying your view on the salvific exclusivity, please. I did answer a bit of that already in the previous question, where I answered Robin about who are the kuffar in terms from Allah's perspective. You can listen to that. Solomon saying, I have one question about the feet in Salah, right? About foot to foot, feet to feet. What is the opinion about this in the Maliki Madhhab? In the Maliki Madhhab, you just stand naturally. You do not need to join feet to feet. That is not a generally within the Maliki Madhhab. I know the Salafis are huge on it. There's no harm if you do it. If you do it, in essence, you're meant to join the heel. I know people, they just end up playing all kind of footsie during Salah. But I think generally, it's not within the main madhabs anyway. Not within the Maliki and the Hanafi school generally, okay. Let's move on. I have some questions regarding talaq. What Maliki Fiqh says about talaq 3 times in one sitting. Would it be considered 3 talaqs or just 1? Junaid, generally 4 schools of law do accept that 3 talaqs within one context are 3. However, all 4 schools have a minority position within them. Some have more of a voice than others about the 3. Any talaq in one context is always 1. I would say that is a minority position, but it is still valid. I would say, as Ibn Ashur, the great Grand Mufti of Tunisia and the Shaykh al-Islam of the Maliki, said that if the maslahah demands, if the welfare demands, you can exercise that ruling. Because today people, they're ignorant usually on matters of fiqh, and they don't truly understand the concept of talaq. Okay? Hello. People, this is Layla. Mwah. Right? Bolo assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, that's she's not too much of a mess, to be fair. That's the other one. Okay, yeah, take it, Abjal. Right, so Cash says, don't care, bro. Mind's focused in Salah. I'm not sure what that question is. Let's move on. Ziqbal, to all the individuals commenting. Right, okay, that's just a comment. Get over the jealousy, man. Z, right. Right, totally with you, huh? You have to ask sometimes why people have so much hatred. Is it just because of insecurities? Right, is it jaiz to celebrate a new year? This comes down to custom and convention. It's not a matter of faith, and it falls under the same ruling as less so of Christmas. Okay, so you can read my article, Tinsel in a Tangle, which is on Facebook as a note. You can read that there, and the Halloween or Halloween, and inshallah it's the same kind of thing and to a lesser degree. Right, does reason change with time? I believe so, that our ethics change with time. So I believe we gain our ethics from our age, okay? الناس أشبه بزمانهم منهم بآبائهم, as the Arabic proverb states, that people are more similar by their age than they are by their lineage. So I would say that Islam comes for each age, and it should reflect the age and therefore the reason of the age and the ethics of the age as well. Right, Hamza Ahmed, may you make a detailed prayer tutorial video. Hamza, well, you'll be glad to know we've already done that, and it will be released as soon as it's edited, that how to pray Salah, an overview in accordance with the school of Medina. Okay, so inshallah, that's coming out. Just look out for that, people. That's to help, because I did have a lot of people asking about how to pray Salah in accordance with the school of Medina, the Maliki Madhhab. Why is it they say when you don't wear hijab, you're not a good Muslim, so basically she's cursed? K, that is nonsense. A person not wearing hijab can be an amazing human being. Somebody wearing hijab can be a monstrous human being. The hijab does not make you who you are. Your character makes you who you are. I'm sure we all know many people who do not wear hijab, and they are amazing human beings. Much better than maybe many people you do know who do wear hijab. And there are many people who do wear hijab who are also amazing people. So the hijab is definitely not what makes somebody good or bad. Okay, why is it they say... Right, so... I have a very important question. We get to know our parents' right in Islam, but what are children's rights, and especially a daughter's right in Islam? Everybody's rights, you have your fundamental human rights. I'm not sure what angle this question is coming from, but you have every right that you can imagine as a human being, and as a daughter that you are taken care of, that your parents, they help nourish, raise you in the best possible way, that they help you with an education, that they allow you your independent freedoms. But you have to understand that culture, unfortunately, meddles a lot with these issues, and it is coated with the name of Islam, but it's not necessarily Islamic. And I'd like to add here, because I'd been asked this question, and somebody really wanted it answered, when it comes to do with marriage, and it may tie in with this question that you have here, and that is, parents never have the right to force their child to get married to somebody that they do not want to get married to. And although we all accept this as force in terms of, a gun or a stick or a headlock, right? They accept that, but also emotional force to blackmail. They have no right to do that. Okay, that is so pressure. Whether you're going to call that force, but it is pressure. So to say, well, because I pray, I must be. You are obligated. You are obliged to obey me. That is not true. The child does not need to obey. They have no obligation, Shar'an, to obey the father in getting married. If the father says, you must obey me and marry this person, if they do not want to marry that person, you are not disobeying Allah in that, because this is exclusively your right. Okay, so please, parents, never fall victim to that. You are only going to ruin lives. I've spoken to literally, I would say, thousands of people over so many years who have been, unfortunately, in a doomed relationship where they've had to, whether they've hacked it or not, but they've suffered because of these kind of pressures that were applied to them. Okay. It's the. I'll introduce you to the one that I am afraid of. Zara, salam alaikum bolo. वहाँ पे वहाँ देखो बोलो अस्सलाम alaikum. She's acting innocent. She is not innocent. Okay. I'm here too. जाओ आप जाओ ठीक है. Right. So anyway, I hope that answers that question. Mus'ab, was Jesus crucified? I have answered this in considerable detail previously. Check my previous session. Right, is there any difference of opinion regarding enzymes found in calf stomachs, such as rennet or pepsin? Yes, Muhammad, there is. This would take the same discussion. Do you mean in terms of? Do you mean by that in terms of their transformation? If it's in terms of transformation, then they take the same discussion as gelatin. If you mean in its pure form, then there have been certain Sahaba radiallahu anhum who did consider the consumption of rennet and so on and non-Muslim cheese to never be an issue, and I believe that their practice demonstrates to us that that's fine, and we do not need to become OCD about certain things in Islam, that we go naturally. That's my understanding, and people may disagree with that. Moisture from animals is considered all permissible from any living creature. All moisture is considered halal. In general, halal isn't the right word, but tahir, pure, is the better word. So saliva from a dog, sweat or tears, even from a pig, is not considered impure according to the school of Medina, because life necessitates purity. Right, now, right, dogs permissible to have? Yes, you can own dogs, and I've answered that previously. Right, people, I think we're getting close to, right, it's 11 o'clock. Any final, is it permissible for women to wear nail polish that she can make wudu after it? Layla, I've answered this before. I do have a video on it as well, a brief video. I do believe it's absolutely permissible. You can do wudu above nail polish. That's my understanding. There have been certain ulama that have backed that understanding. I have based that on the understanding of Imam Malik and the ring. You did not need to remove it, even if what was under it remained dry, and even though the ring was much more easier to remove than nail polish. And I did present that, my understanding, to Sheikh Dado as well, and I spoke to him, and he agreed that that would also be permissible. Right, so I hope that's been of some help. People, right, keeping the beard, fard, I have a video on that. I believe the beard is sunnah, and the beard really is just what is on the chin, and is anything that can conventionally be called a beard, right? So if this will be called a beard, a full beard, a long beard, whatever. I don't believe that the sunnah, there is not a single hadith that defines the length from the Prophet, the length of the beard. Okay, so the hadith that they have is from Ibn Umar. It's descriptive. I don't believe it's legislative, prescriptive. It's descriptive at best. I hope that answers some of your questions, people. I'm sorry I couldn't get through all of your questions. There's been so much coming through. I have to say there's been so much love coming through on this session. People, stay blessed. You've really you've really touched me with that, so I do appreciate that. You know, barakallahu feekum. May Allah always keep you smiling and full of laughter. Right, till next week, take care of yourselves. Remember me in your du'as. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.